Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network. For the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews, press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. From the Popcorn Talk Network and producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and Phil Svitek, this is iTalk Movies. Long-form interviews with leading members of the film industry. And now, your host of iTalk Movies.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Popcorn Talk. And on behalf of Popcorn Talk, I want to welcome actor, but also fellow podcaster, Jerry Ferrara.
Let me just say, it is an absolute honor and a privilege to be here, and I have like a warm, fuzzy feeling right now. I swear, it's the truth.
There you go. And as the name implies, of course, we're going to talk movies. We're
Yes.
going to talk Entourage. We're going to talk some other movies. But first, before we get into it, we want to talk about Bad for Business. By the way, alongside here, Roxy Striar.
Hello.
I'm Phil Svitek.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I listen to your podcast. I absolutely love it. I love what you do, and I love what Bree does, and I think that it's great to be in the podcast world.
Yeah, honestly, and I have to say, the reason why that I have that warm, fuzzy feeling is we were here a year ago, and you were kind enough to give us some insight and advice and guidance. And without that, I mean, I really don't think we would have gotten past maybe buying a mic. So big thanks to you, Phil, and just that's why it's just great to be here, because even like walking up to the studio, I just can't believe we're still doing it after a year, but you get a lot of the credit.
Well, Kevin Undergaro and Maria.
And Kevin and Maria,
of
obviously,
course,
as well. I saw Maria the other day, and I thanked her obsessively, and I think she's kind of like, all right, dude, I get it. That you're welcome. It's okay.
Well,
No.
what I love is the podcast is called Bad for Business. It's produced by your girlfriend.
Yes, who's in the building. She's in the building, judging.
And, you know, when we initially talked, you know, it was very much, everyone kept saying to you, don't do this. You're an actor. Why are you starting a podcast? And it was because it was bad for business.
Yeah, and you know what kind of gives me a little bit of just like a relieving feeling is that since the 1 year, I mean, there's probably, and your opinion would be much better than mine. I mean, just hundreds, if not thousands, of podcasts since. I feel like a lot of actors, you know, have kind of thrown their hat in the ring, and I'm glad that I wasn't like the last man in. I certainly wasn't the first, but I was somewhere in the mid to late round, but I was not the last, which is good.
That's why this is really cool, because when I listen to your podcast, you do a lot of long-form interviews, and you're asking all of these questions, but I keep thinking, wow, I want to know your answers to the exact same questions that you're asking everybody else, which is why I'm so excited to have you in on our podcast so that we can talk to you about all those
Yeah,
things.
you know, it's weird. And early on, I've had a lot of friends of mine who were guests who happen to be actors and stuff. But, you know, it's not like I sat around and, like, talked to Kevin Connolly, who's from Entourage, about his early years when he did, like, a Nerf commercial when he was 8 years old with Seth Green. Like, I didn't even really know that. So through the podcast, I'm also learning about friends of mine. And, you know, I had Adrian on last week, and he's talking about the documentary about finding his father, and he had zero relationship with his dad. Like, I knew a little bit, but I'm learning about my friends through this forum. So
The questions that you kind of always wanted to ask them, but it's weird. Like, over a beer, do you really want to turn
like,
somebody
what
and
happened
say,
with your dad, bro? So you just never see him? What happened? Like, yeah, you just, I don't know. We obviously have gotten pretty deep over the years, but it's different. People are almost ready for it when they know they're being interviewed. They're ready to open up.
Right.
So-
Is that part of the reason why you wanted to get into podcasting?
Part of it for sure. I mean, I told Phil this a long time ago. My first form of entertainment was radio, was talk radio. I didn't have a TV in my room. We were the last people in Brooklyn to get cable and call waiting. Thanks, Mom. But cable, and I would go to sleep at night. I would like listen to the Yankee game, and then I would turn on like their post-game show, and then I would somehow find some kind of talk radio to put me to sleep. So I've always had a great respect and affinity for it, and now, you know, the way the podcast game has changed the radio game, it was just really was like a side thing that's becoming much more of a main thing for me.
So what have you taken away? Because, I mean, one of the things what you fell, you know, obviously you have that, but then you guested on a lot of shows, Dan Patrick, Corolla, and other stuff, and you kind of obviously love doing it, but it's so much different than being a guest versus now, wow, I got to host, I got to come up with questions, I got to produce this thing.
It's so different. And honestly, I'm enjoying being a guest right now so much. Let me just add that. But, you know, I filled in years ago for Dan Patrick and for Jim Rome, again, being a big sports nerd. So that was like the first taste of it and the first moment where I felt like maybe I could do it. but just at least when I'm hosting, like I'm just always worried. I always have the biggest fear. I've had like nightmares that we're gonna start the interview and it's just I'm not gonna think of anything to say or a question, like a freeze moment, like just a freeze up moment. That's always a big fear of mine. I don't know why.
Well, you're very conversational, so I don't think you have to worry about that as a problem because.
AKA you talk too much. But
No, that's not what I mean at all.
I know,
But
I'm
first of
teasing.
all, a lot of these people are your friends.
Yeah.
Worst comes to worst, you guys just, you shoot the crap back and forth and you figure out what's going on in their life.
I guess sorry to interrupt. The nicest part is I can't wake up tomorrow and say I want to act. Like I have to scratch and claw and fight just to be able to do something I love. But with this, if I want a podcast, I could tell Bree to fire up the mics tomorrow and I could podcast and no one can tell me I can't. That's kind of a nice feeling for me.
Absolutely, and I forgot my question.
Well,
He's freezing up. He's freezing up.
I am freezing up.
It's funny. I'll take this for him because that is what Phil always is telling me, and Kevin Maria. This is your own platform. Nobody can take that away from you. So you now have the ability to. You have 1 million fans out there, and you have the ability to talk directly to your fans and tell them whatever the hell you want to tell them about yourself or about things, and no one can take that from you. It's completely different than any other aspect of the industry.
Honestly, I really do love it. It's the coolest part too. Like when you get, and you guys know because you've been doing it. When you have, whether it's 1 fan or 1,000 or whatever, that fan that just like not lives for the show, but lives for that day you release the episode and is asking you, hey, when's it coming out? And like you get that immediate feedback. I take the negativity hard, but I also take the positivity even harder. Like I treasure it.
Well, speaking of that, have people been receptive of your podcast overall? I mean, first of all, booking guests or all of your friends or guests down to come on, and second of all, fans, are they giving you mostly positive responses?
So far, the people we do have listening, it's all been positive. There's been a few negative things here and there, but few and far between, like down to like, oh, you interrupt your guest too much. I'm like, you know what? That's constructive. I don't agree, but that is constructive, and I will take that. I haven't mastered the art of guests. Like obviously I've got the Entourage guys, and I had a lot of the cast of Think Like a Man on and some of my friends, but I haven't mastered that art. Like I'm friendly with Nick Swartzen, who I love as a comic, and I've worked with him on something before. We're friends. He's not like the best friend who comes over, but now we're like a listener tweeted like you should get Nick Swartzen on, and I tweeted at him and he said text me, let's do it, and I still haven't done it because I'm like, God, does he really want to? I start questioning, like I don't want to be too bossy or pushy about the guest. And Bree's always like riding me like, when are you getting Kevin Hart on? I'm like, I don't want to ask Kevin Hart to come on. I feel like 1 million people ask him, but I need to be more assertive.
Here's a good thing, he's listening right now, so
Kevin, where you at, man?
He'll definitely text you.
I gotta give Bree a shout out because the combination of you guys together is just so fantastic. And I see her working behind the scenes, and you do your thing on the mic for the most part. And it's just such a great combo that I really respect that not many people have that, when they go into it. But even just the idea that you put so much effort into wanting to be good. So many people go into it and they're like, yeah, whatever, it's just a mic, and I'll say what I want.
No, I always look. Whether people like it or hate it, I at least wanted to have a plan, And it doesn't. If people hate it, all right, that's fine. You got to change the plan. But I wasn't going to go in there. I'm not the type who could totally freestyle and just turn the mic on like Bill Burr does that. I feel like a little bit, and he just freestyles and it's brilliant. I could not do that. But Bree in the beginning, if I recall, didn't want to be as much of a voice on it. And I just knew it changed. But what's also been cool is to watch her kind of grow. Like she would just chime in here or there to now like she's fully confident with that mic, and like people have the listeners and the fans have truly grown to enjoy Bree's commentary.
That's what I was actually going to bring up. You were very honest about the podcast. I love when you guys do the takes and the mistakes. But you know what I mean. You're not afraid to put yourself out there and just say, hey, you know what? I'm trying at this. I'm not an expert, but follow this journey.
I always love the behind the scenes of stuff, like even going into TV and in movies. Like one of my favorite movies is Spinal Tap, and one of my favorite shows was Larry Sanders Show. So like I like that fly on the wall. So if it's, because I bumble anytime we have some sponsors and we do ads, and I bumble the first 2 takes all the time. So we started just airing some of them.
Right, because it's funny and people want to hear it.
Yeah, believe it, it's not polished.
I want to ask you, because you mentioned a plan, that you had to have a plan. What exactly is the plan? When you decided to do this, what's the plan?
That is a heavy question because
I try.
the plan always changes. I mean, one goal was always to, do a few different shows and really maybe kind of build out a sports platform to go along with the Bad for Business platform, and that's slowly happening. If I'm being totally honest, and I feel like this is a great place to be transparent because this is where I was a year ago. Like, look, I love acting and I plan on acting forever, but again, sticking to what I said, I wouldn't have any issues if I could make a living out of doing this. Not quite yet. I'm not ready to step away and enter retirement, but even semi-retirement, where if I could somehow figure out a way to monetize podcasting to a degree that it could withstand my lifestyle, which is not very expensive, I would totally be okay with that down the road,
Sounds like you're enjoying it a bit.
I am. I really am.
Something I love that you guys are doing, because you talked about monetization, is the ads that you are talking, or the live reads you're doing, you actually use all the products you talk about, which I think is incredible. So the mattress or MeUndies or whatever you're doing.
Where's our MeUndies, by the way?
By the way, I swear, and look, this is not me being like, these are MeUndies. Right? I'm wearing them right now, but they're not paying me to be here, so this is not a plug. I'm wearing them right now. And,
They're that good.
Well, you know what it is too. Look, they pay whatever it is they pay. It's not enough money for me to force feed ads. Like, we're not in this for the money. I'm actually more interested in experiencing ads and what that does to the listeners. Are the listeners like, oh, you run ads, it's so boring and I hate that, and we fast forward it? Or will they actually participate if I say, hey, I enjoy this product, I think you guys will too, they're paying me to read this stuff, but try the product anyway? And so far, we've only had 4 or 5 different sponsors, but I've absolutely used, worn, whatever it is. I won't have a product on if I don't like it. I just won't.
We just saw.
I swear,
We know
and
now.
I did not do that on purpose because I did not expect to be asked about MeUndies tonight.
This is sort of a fan question, but it ties into this. What would be the sneaker company that you would love to have sponsor your podcast?
This is coming from a girl named Leanne, and she wanted to know if you were a real sneaker fan in real life, if you had an actual collection, and I guess that would be the follow-up.
Okay, well, Phil and Leanne, first and foremost, I am a real sneakerhead. It's evolved and changed so many times. When I was younger, I was big into it, and then you move out to LA to chase an acting dream, and I couldn't afford sneakers. Then I got an Entourage and I could afford sneakers, and everyone wanted to give me free sneakers, so I also thought that was a little weird, and I strayed away because I feel like there's always
A catch.
Yeah. But I'm back into Jordans right now. I took a break from Jordans. I'm wearing Toro Bravo 5s right now. Not a 5, I'm sorry, 4s. And I would absolutely like the podcast to be sponsored by Jordan.
Cool.
That will never happen, but
You don't know that.
I think it could.
Put out that energy.
I'm planning something for the premiere of Entourage, and this isn't even teeing you guys up for a segue.
You're the June 5th podcast, right? Because I heard you teasing it.
No, that's when he goes black about Entourage. That's when they go Entourage dark.
Right. June,
Okay.
yes, dark. I'm planning something. I don't know if I'm gonna have the guts to pull it off, and I don't want to spill it completely. But if I do it, and it's gonna be at the premiere on June 1st, the LA premiere, it will be something for the sneakerheads. It'll be a little tip of the cap to the sneakerheads out there.
What do you mean you don't know if you're going to be willing to do it? What's that mean? It's ballsy?
Should I say it? I mean, should I? All right, here's what I'm thinking. I'll say it. I'll say
Okay.
it. There is a sneaker that we did an episode on in the show, where this designer designs a shoe and my character wants it, but they sell out. And then the Vince character at the end basically commissions the guy, pays him 20 grand to make one of one just for me. And we actually did commission a real artist alongside with Nike to make an Air Force One custom made that we use on the show.
Cool.
They're gold and white, and they're he uses a laser to burn into the leather to make all these cool, signs, and it's almost like a Da Vinci Code. It actually says stuff, and only I could really decode it.
Oh my God.
Down to who my first baseball player was. Somewhere on that shoe it says Don Mattingly. And
Oh my God.
obviously I kept those, and he did make one for each of the guys on the show, so there's only 4 in existence. And mine have never touched the ground, and I've been offered a lot of money, and they sit in a vault locked away. I'm thinking about wearing them on the red carpet with my
In
suit.
2 seconds. Just put them on for one
I'll
photo.
walk the carpet, take a few photos, and then I'm gonna hopefully have someone who will literally just take them right back to my house and lock them up.
So if you get enough
Again.
tweets about it now,
Yeah, I just think it'd be a cool story because they've never touched the ground ever.
that is insane.
We'll see.
I'm really excited. Now you put it out in the world, so here it is.
But I don't know. I mean, sneakers and a suit. I don't know. That goes against. I'm Italian from Brooklyn. That goes against everything I stand for on another level. We wear a nice pair of shoes, not sneakers.
That's a turtle look, though. It's a turtle
It
look.
would be a very in character thing to do, and what better place than the freaking Entourage premiere, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Before we get completely off of your podcast, though, I do want to give you a chance in case anybody doesn't know where to find it. Where can they find your podcast, Bad for Business?
It's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, and B for B-E-N-T, which I guess is short for entertainment, which also spells B for bent. .com, which I can't. It took me a while to decipher, but B for B-E-N-T is the website as well. But
Okay.
iTunes, I feel like, is the
Universally,
play. Yeah, that's it.
But seriously, you guys at home, check it out because it really is very entertaining and it does have a lot of your favorite stars come guest on it. It's true. You got a lot of good people in there.
And Kevin Hart will be coming up. No, I'm kidding. We have not asked Kevin yet.
No, it's good. You're putting things out in the universe on this table right now. Somebody's going to pick it up.
I'm spilling my guts on this table. I love it.
Speaking of Kevin Hart, before, again, fans listening, watching live, whatever, we will get into Entourage. I promise you. I promise you. I know that's what everyone wants to get to. But with Kevin Hart, Think Like a Man, Think Like a Man 2. I actually know Will Packer.
Oh, God, the great Will Packer.
Great. I mean, it's seven movies that have opened up #1.
I mean, he's a mogul. He's
incredible.
He's killing it on every level. I mean, I'm so happy for the guy because I often asked him, like, what made you cast me? He cast me. We literally wrapped Entourage, the show, and Think Like a Man 1 came around. And look, I have to scratch and claw for everything, so I don't get. I do get offered some stuff. It's usually bad. No offense to people who have offered me things in the years that I've said no to. And he just offered me this. There was no audition. There was no meeting. This was, here's a script, offer for this role. We want you to do it. We start in 2 weeks. And I read it, and I thought it was hilarious and charming and fun. And then I heard the cast, and I kind of felt insecure for a second. Like, where do I mean, Michael Ealy's a Golden Globe nominated guy, and Taraji Henson was nominated for an Academy Award. Like, and I don't think I'm that funny because Kevin Hart is hilarious, and he hadn't really done a movie where it was just tailor-made for him.
When you say that, what made him ask me and that you're not that funny, I am thinking that you're not seeing yourself properly, that you don't actually see what a major star you have become. Yes, based off of this show, but then everything you've done following.
That might be the case. I just always feel like I could do better, I guess is the best way to describe my outlook on stuff I've done. But he said, you're a cool guy. And then he told me who my love interest was. And he said, Gabrielle Union. That's where I literally went, oh, God, great. So that's who I have to convince an audience that I can get, right? I have to convince an audience that awesome, thanks for that
had a similar
setup.
storyline on Entourage.
Right, but that was always like an underdog story, kind of like there's no way Turtle could get this girl, but he does. And I think that's what a lot of people, related to and rooted for. And in this, she wanted to marry me.
Okay, well, not that she's not beautiful, but I'm thinking that if you can get Brie, then you can get just about anybody.
Again, of course, but now we're not talking about...
I got you, girl.
We're not talking about my own personal real-life charm here.
Right.
We're talking about my acting abilities, when I didn't have I have a confidence in my own personal ability. My acting ability, maybe not so much.
Right, I saw an interview you did saying that Turtle must either have the money and the entertainment or really be good in bed. So it's something going on there.
Or both. No, let's not
Yeah.
get too crazy.
Yeah, I'm thinking Turtle's got it. He's okay.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's doing okay. But I agree with you. I think that the movie was very funny and charming, and I wanted to hear more about your experience on it and what things were like, because you went and you did a second one also, so it must have worked out pretty well for you.
I just, and this is going to sound very like a premeditated comment, but obviously people who have seen some of my stuff know I'm lucky, but then like Think Like a Man, it just was almost like Entourage all over again. It was a cast that came together and we became like a family instantly. And I made lifelong friends, people who I want to spend my personal time with, who I get to work with and get paid to hang out with. So that in itself is just a blessing, and that's why I'm one of the luckiest people on the face of the earth. But also, I always say chemistry and we'll get into it with Entourage when it's right, but with Think Like a Man, at least, you could do your best to cast it. It's either going to happen or it's not. I've seen people who have had tons of off-screen chemistry not have any on screen. I've seen people who've hated each other on screen. Off-screen, and they've had a ton of on-screen chemistry. You can't really plan for it. It's this mythical thing, and on Think Like a Man, it was just the right ingredients to go with the right script. And then also, Kevin Hart, who has done 79 movies since Think Like a Man 1, it just was, I had a front row seat to watching an explosion. And that's exactly what happened when Think Like a Man came out. Obviously, he was killing it as a comedian, but then his movie business just went to the moon and never returned. So
you seem to be, I mean, this kind of, I don't want to quite get into Entourage yet, but you seem to be at the forefront of like Ronda Rousey in terms of starting her acting career. You were there. Because even though we've seen her in movies, that was her first time actually on screen. You're, shooting something for.
You saying I have the golden touch, Phil? Is that what you're saying?
So.
Everything
I think that's what
touch?
I'm saying.
My manager Steve Levinson, who's also one of the main producers of Entourage, is basically he was the one who started Entourage, has always suggested that I have some kind of guardian angel. I don't see it, and nor can I admit that. But do you want to get into Rhonda? I'm glad to do it.
Let's do it. Because I heard you talking about it with Corolla.
Yes.
So I was intrigued, kind of on some follow-up of there.
There was a storyline, and I believe it might have been, I'm literally going to break you some new stuff. It might have initially been for Rihanna, I think. But honestly, it evolved. There was at one time, it was 6 or 7 different people, and it's just so hard to get cameos or even people who are playing themselves as a character because whether they're just not comfortable doing that or their schedules are crazy. So Rhonda had never seen Entourage up until a month before her name was even mentioned.
She missed all 96 episodes?
She, when she goes into her camp and for fights and stuff, I think she tunes out. But she had started a month or two before randomly with her friends at camp watching the show. So she was on season 3, and she very much believes in manifesting things. She literally said, "I love this show. I'm gonna work with these guys one day," because the movie was announced at this point, and then the story, her name was mentioned as the girl to play this kind of storyline, and within a month of her watching the show, she was meeting with Doug Ellen about doing the movie.
Oh my gosh!
And it just timed out so right because if I can't think of anyone else to do the story with, because the story in the movie is really about Turtle is interested in her romantically, but also now he's a businessman. There's a huge business opportunity with her, and is he going to blur those lines or not?
Well, speaking of that, the last time we see you, when we first see you, you're a driver. Then when we last see you, you're a millionaire because you have sold this tequila company, and now you're blowing everything out of the water. And now I'm wondering where we're going to pick up business-wise with you, career-wise. Did you blow it all away, or are you doing okay still?
I mean, he is the suspect to lose it all in a high-stakes poker game. I've always said that. But the movie picks off. He is a millionaire, even more so, and the guys all want to know how much money he made, and he won't tell, which is kind of an ongoing bit. No one knows how much money this guy made. He could have made 10 million, he could have made 100 million, and he's not saying. So he's very much still successful, but what I love is the dynamic of the group has not changed for him. He still drives, he still makes sure the Vince character gets to his meetings, and the dynamic of the group for any success or failure for these guys never changes, and that's what I always hope people were getting.
I love hearing that because something that I was worried about was we are a couple years out from the TV show.
We sure are. My gray hair could tell you that.
And I was one of those people who from day one the show ended, I was thinking, all right, when's the movie? When's the movie? And at some point I started thinking, is this going to happen? And I know that you've been quoted saying that you didn't know whether it was going to happen. What changed and somehow kicked it into overdrive so that it did take off?
At one point it did feel like a really good episode of Entourage, meaning the attempt of making the movie. It was always intended. There was a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end of the series that Doug Ellen did with the Ari character after the credits. And it was funny, a lot of people have been tweeting at me recently saying, I didn't know that, I never saw that. I watched every episode, and they just didn't stick around for that after the credits moment.
You got to stay tuned.
You always do.
Marvel taught us
Maybe
that.
The Sopranos hurt everyone, because everyone stayed tuned for those credits to end, thinking they were going to see more at the end, and they didn't.
Nothing.
So the plan was always, instead of doing another season, it was to do a movie, but then, who goes this way and which guy goes that way and what girl is not available. And then you start to get into all the financial talks, which there was a whole big to-do about nothing, really. It wasn't that intense. I mean, I read an article yesterday in Hollywood Reporter that was saying, like, Jeremy Piven got paid $5 million. I'm like, that's awesome. I mean, I'm not trying to comment on his financial status, but they were trying to say that was the cause of the argument. I'm like, I don't know how much everyone got paid. So it really did feel like a good episode of the show.
Speaking of, as just in terms of the show, because, kind of in your own life, you were kind of newer and green. Yeah. Did you learn a lot about how to handle yourself in the business by doing the show? I mean, it must be educational to some degree.
Absolutely. I thought I was pretty sharp and maybe wise beyond my years when the show came around to me. I mean, I was 23 years old when we shot the pilot, and I did think I knew a lot. But the show actually proved to me I didn't know anything. And the weird thing did happen. I mean, I really operated out of fear a lot when I was younger. I just didn't want it taken away from me because I felt so lucky and I loved doing it. And I was always worried, is the show going to get canceled? Am I going to get written out? Am I going to do something? Am I going to go get in trouble and they're going to get mad at me? That's why it's not that I didn't go out and enjoy myself, but I really kind of played it pretty close to the line, because I was just afraid that something would screw all this up, and this is ultimately all I wanted. That was my major goal, accomplished at a young age.
When did that feeling go away? Oh my gosh, is this show going to get canceled? Am I going to get written out? Because how on earth you could feel that after season 1? It was such a major hit.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I mean, again, I didn't know much about the business like I thought I did. What I heard after season 1 was the ratings are okay, and they were only okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people say they loved Entourage from the beginning, but they didn't get into it until season 3.
Corolla claims that he was, and I think he was, because he had me on his show after season 1. It was the only interview I could get.
Really?
Yeah.
Go podcast.
But what really made me start to feel a little more comfortable was we got a Golden Globe nomination after season 1, and I'll never forget, and I've told this story before, and one day I will reveal this person's name, but I can't do it yet. But the person is an agent. And we were at the night before party where they announced the Golden Globes at 5 a.m. the next day. We were at some party at Chateau Marmont, which for those of you is a very Hollywood, trendy LA, swanky hotel. And there was a party there for the Golden Globes, which we just kind of crashed. And this agent kind of yawned. It was midnight, and I don't want to give away. All right, you know what? It's a girl. She said, I gotta get home. They announced these Globes so early, 5 in the morning. I went, cool. She's like, Jerry, don't worry. If you guys keep doing your thing, one day, maybe if you're lucky, you guys will get, you'll get a nomination. And all I remember thinking is that would be freaking amazing. I hope you're right. And then my phone rang at 5:30 a.m. and they're like, Entourage got nominated for Best Comedy. And every time I see this woman, I kind of just look at her and I smile, and she knows what I'm smiling about. But I guess she was happy to be wrong in that situation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were
doesn't
happy
ever calm down, though. For me, it probably was around season 5 that I allowed myself to say, the show's successful, I have job security, and now I could enjoy myself a little bit.
Season 5?
Probably, yeah.
It's so, because like you said, around season 3, I think it was the largest show on television. Every single person I knew, woman, man, didn't matter the age, was watching the show. Did you have people just swarming you in the streets? I can imagine you guys just being the idol of kids that are 9 and people that are 60 years old.
Season 3, if I try to remember around that time, it definitely, our visibility was definitely up there. I mean, it wasn't like we couldn't go anywhere or else we get chased around, but there were just some places that if we went, you just know, certain restaurants, God, if I went to a Yankee game, it was you would think the mayor was there. And it was only because I'm there wearing my Yankee hat like I did on the show. I'm the only person who's more recognizable with a hat. It's kind of bizarre, right? True. Normally actors put a hat on, they want to go cool over their eye. I do that and I'm more recognizable. People didn't even think I had hair for the first 3 seasons of Entourage.
Yeah, they think that you are Turtle when they see you outside.
They want me to be. I had a hard time. I always, in the beginning, thought, God, these people really think that, and it's not that, or else they'd be clinically insane.
Right, of
it's
course.
just that they want me to be, so bad because they wanted it to be real. They wanted that interaction with me or with Ari or with Vince or drama. They wanted him to go victory. They just wanted it.
Yeah.
I thought that they actually believed it, and I was scared that these people were nuts. They just wanted it to be.
On Bad for Business, when you were talking to everybody that's come on your show from Entourage, especially the one that I just listened to with Adrian, he was out of the country when he was auditioning. He sent in that tape, and you get everybody's story. But I kind of wanted to hear a little bit more about your story and how exactly you did get the role back in the day, and that moment where you finally sunk it, where what you felt.
Yeah, here's the way I remember it, and I'm a little bit older of a guy, and sometimes stories change, so I'm going to try to give it to you the way it is. I had done an independent film that like 500 people in the world saw, and just one of them happened to be a guy by the name of Steve Levinson, who at the time was Mark Wahlberg's manager and had kind of taken Mark, from Calvin Klein to one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, and he wanted to sign me as a client, and I signed with him, and he initially was saying, he's like, look, we're producing this HBO show, it's about Mark and his buddies, whatever, you're perfect for it, we're going to bring you in on it. Great. That didn't really give me a leg in, because I must have auditioned for it probably 15 times.
For Entourage.
For Entourage. And then at one point I even read for the Eric character, and because it just was such a mismatch. Like, I know Doug Ellen and Steve Levinson, they knew what they wanted, but they were seeing everybody. And then they started matching us all up, and I like, so many friendships I have now came from those Entourage auditions.
Even people who weren't cast.
People who weren't cast, just getting mixed and matched with people, and then
Crazy.
all leading toward the final network test, which is always the biggest nightmare for an actor, because they're bringing 3 people for each role, sometimes more, and it's just like a battle to the death. And that waiting room is so uncomfortable, because me, I'm kind of like B Rabbit. I'm like hood up in the corner, just not listening to anyone. And then there's like funny guy who's trying to make everyone in the room laugh. And
trying to talk to you, and you're like, leave me alone.
And then there's guy who runs his lines to everybody. Like, what do you mean, Vince? We're not like. I'm like, dude, just shut up. Stop running your lines at me. That's why I always identified. I loved the way Kevin Dillon played the Johnny Drama audition scenes. He's a hero to actors, because he like would stand up to the producers in the audition room, and I think that's why a lot of actors love Johnny Drama, was because that audition process is just, it's designed to make you quit. That's what I always say. Like, if you could hang in there, you'll be okay. That process is designed to make you quit. So then they bring everyone in solo to do like a solo performing piece. It's almost like some kind of beauty pageant. Like, here performing the solo piece for Turtle is Jerry Ferrara. And I went in and I did the same scene I've been doing for now 15 times, and I went out. Didn't really go great. And Mark Wahlberg, who I had not met at this point, who was in the room, comes out of the room and says, Jerry, come here. And I'm like, he can't be talking to me. All right. I walk over there, and he just puts his arm around me, and he's like whispering. He's like, man, you got to kill it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, that was okay. That wasn't what you've been doing. I've been watching the tapes. I'm like,
That
you
is
have?
so nerve-wracking.
And he's like, yeah. He's like, this is the moment. Like, this is not, like, you got to step up right here. Like, it's yours to win. This is yours to win. Just go do it. Don't worry about the script. Don't worry about whatever. Just go be you. Go do what you were doing. Like, he then starts he broke me down, and then he fired me up. And it really was, I wasn't all that nervous, and maybe that was the thing. Maybe I needed to be, because I really did think it was mine to lose, but that was like a sobering talk. And then right after that, now they start pairing you up with other characters. And they paired me
Chemistry
with
reads.
Kevin Connolly. Well, that's not, now they're literally just seeing what's our lineup here. It could come down to like, he's too short at this point, which always happens to me. And Kevin Connolly and I went in there, and I made that decision, like, I'm just going all out. I don't care if it's overacting. I'm just leaving it all in the room. And I finally heard laughs, and Connolly killed it. And we had this great rapport, and I knew the whole room laughed, and I looked back, and Mark kind of gave me a nod, and I walked out. And then they actually start sending people home. Then they'll come out and say, oh, you can go. You go. Jerry, you stay. Kevin, you stay. So you kind of like start waving to these people. You're like, all right, farewell. And there was that moment where it was
Suckers.
me, Kevin Connolly, Kevin Dillon, and Adrian, as you mentioned, wasn't there. There was another person in there. And we were the last people there, and we did one scene, and then they said, all right, guys, thanks, you could go. And I got the call 30 minutes later. Thank God they didn't make me wait 24 to 48 hours like they also do.
Was the audition piece from the pilot?
Yeah, it was, the solo piece was, there was a scene where, the Connolly character and oh no, I'm sorry, it was the bigger the head, the bigger the star thing. Russell Crowe, big head. Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah,
big head.
I
Vincent
remember.
Chase, big head. It was that scene, and then
I can't believe you
Connolly,
remember
yeah, I can't believe it. And then Connolly and I did a scene where we're interrupted with Ari, but it's the whole. I don't know if I could say how much can I. it's not a full curse; it's a half curse. Am I allowed to?
You're okay.
quoting.
Okay.
Yeah, you're quoting.
Quoting, he says, could you ever get laid without Vince? And then I say, do I give a F? That's the answer. It was that scene with Kevin Connolly that we did in the room, and that was it.
When you're sitting there as an actor, because you aren't casting this and you're not the producer, are you looking at the other actors thinking, I kind of hope that person gets cast because I feel like we could do a good job together? Or are you just thinking about yourself and only what you can do?
I think, at least for me at that point, you could only see like an inch in front of your face. So really you're looking at yourself. It's about you because, you just have no clue what they're looking for. You have no idea.
Right.
So I don't know if any actor's thinking like, oh, I hope this guy gets it because him and I or her and I could do some great stuff. I think it's just get me this job. I'll kill it with no matter who's next to me.
And then after that, yes, professionally you have to get along on some level, but then outside you guys go meet up, you finally are cast, the four of you, and is it like, all right, let's become friends? This is a little awkward. It's like kindergarten where you got to go start making friends with all your classmates again.
I remember this is such a great story, only maybe to me, not to everybody listening, but I remember getting a call like, hey, so we all knew we had to start getting to know each other, and like Mark, and you gotta remember this is 12 years ago. Mark, wasn't married, didn't have kids yet, and Mark was like, Mark's gonna have it. I got a call from someone in his camp and was like, Mark wants to take you guys out. So meet him at the time it was a club called Joseph's, which was in Hollywood, and he's like, yeah, be there like 11 o'clock. I'm like, okay. And I remember pulling up to the club. I drove, obviously. There's no Uber or back then.
Rookie move, yeah.
Rookie move, for sure. I mean, but I'm not a big drinker, so that wasn't an issue. But then I see the line, and I just remember like, do I have to wait on this line? And they had told me, they say, go up to the guy at the door and just say Mark's name. And I'm so not a name dropper. I must have stood outside for 30 minutes across the street.
It's awkward to go up to the front of a building and say, I'm here with Mark Wahlberg.
Hundreds of people online looking at them. I'm just like, God, I got it. All right. I walked across the street. I walked right up to the bouncer, and I had no confidence. I went, he's like, yes. I'm like, hey, here to meet Mark. He went, what? I mumbled. I'm like, Mark Wahlberg. He's like, you here to meet Marky? I said, yes.
Yeah, what you just said.
And he was like, all right, come on. And those ropes just opened right up. I literally mumbled it. I was so scared. I was like, I'm here to meet Mark.
Since then,
Here's what I love, because I've had similar experiences. Do you kind of just walk in and they're like, it's over there, and you're like, oh, where?
No, they walked me up to the table where there was just a group of people, and then the bouncer like parted them, and then I literally saw like Mark seated next to Kevin Connolly, and I just walked in, and yeah, that was the first time we all kind of hung out. And then a week later, Mark took us on a private plane, which I hadn't even sat first class at that point in my life, let alone on a private plane.
Right.
He took us to a fight, an HBO fight in Vegas.
you haven't even filmed anything at this point.
Nothing. I think that fight, obviously all the fights are on a Saturday. I think we were starting the pilot Monday, which is a little gutsy to do, to take your whole cast to Vegas on a party trip a little bit. But
Let's get them good and drunk so we can film hungover. It's great. Entourage.
by the time we got back on Sunday, like I even remember like Kevin Dillon dropped me off at the airport. That's how close. At my house from the airport. That's how close we were. So
That's awesome.
We were ready to shoot the pilot come Monday morning after all that.
All right, this is what we were talking about before you got here. We were looking on IMDb at every single person who's in this movie. It's like anybody who's ever been. There's so many stars. How do you fit that many stars into a film and still have a plot of some sort?
I think that's. I realize I start every answer with I got to stop doing that. As a podcast host, I got to stop doing that. Mental
you said
note.
it
Bree,
now,
you
yeah.
remember that, okay? Just say no more. If I hit just zap me. If I say no, it's something I think Doug Ellen, who created the show and directed the movie, has never got full credit for. That he could work these cameos in a way that doesn't always feel like heavy-handed, and he did it with this movie. There's a party sequence in the movie that we have, and I'm talking our base camp, which is where they keep all the trailers, was like an underground city. There was like 30 trailers, and it's Clay Matthews and Rob Gronkowski and Bob Saget and Gary Busey in the front line of the LA Kings and Pharrell, and it's just how is he going to work all these in? But in that world, these are the people who would be at that party. And there was one moment where Doug's like, "Oh, we got
That's
Mike
true.
Tyson coming in like 2 hours. What could we do with him?" I'm like, "I don't know," but he's coming into that's the other thing. They're not in the script. They're
Right.
not. We don't have all that much notice because who really knows if Pharrell's going to show up? Who really knows if Rob Gronkowski's going to show up and be willing to? I mean, in the movie, he does a beer bong thing, and with crutches, and I think he has his shirt off.
I'm a Boston girl, so
You
I
know.
know all about Gronk.
But you don't know if he's actually going to come do that. So
Production wise, are the cameramen just ready to go, run and gun? Like, hey, we got to get this scene. Like, we just wrote it, do it, go.
pretty much. We did have a very handheld style, and we did up everything in terms of the look for the movie. But we always thought the look of the show translated to a movie. But yeah, so we have some most of the same crew going back to season 1, so they know the style, they know the pace.
I'm getting a little greedy, but we had 96 episodes, and now we have first movie. Is there any chance we'll get a second movie, you think? Would people be willing to do that if it was on the table?
It's really up to you, and it's up to people
It's up to
listening.
me, so there's a movie,
What
yeah.
I mean is, if you've enjoyed the show, or even if you hadn't seen the show, if you support the movie and you go see the movie, there obviously is a business element, just like we would say in Entourage. If the movie puts up a certain number, I could speak for all of us cast-wise, it's going to happen. We just can't control if enough people go see it or not. All I can say, and this is not a hard sell, but I guess it is, whether you've seen the show or not, the movie's great by itself. And I think it's pretty cool. You can go watch a movie and maybe fall in love with these characters. Then you have 96 episodes of a prequel waiting for you, which I would, as a fan of movies and television, that would be pretty damn cool.
Oh my gosh, we go see a movie and then you know that there's more. That's incredible.
Oh, man.
So we're running out of time, but I did want to ask one fan question. So these are coming from big fans of yours named Alexis and Neil. And they said, what would Turtle say to up-and-coming artists and stars? So now I need you to put on your actor cap. Be Turtle for a second.
Turtle's all about the hustle, and I think Turtle would say fake it till you make it. No matter what it is, if it's an acting thing or a music thing like Turtle is dabbling in, it's all about the hustle. Like, you got to love it. You have to love what you do, because you have to be willing to deal with a lot of negative people trying to stand in your way. So I think Turtle will be telling everyone, hustle. Fake it till you make it, and hustle, because that's what he did a little bit. I don't fully believe Turtle knew what the heck he was doing.
So Alexis and Neil, that was from Turtle himself, I guess.
Sorry, I have my hat backwards, but
No, it's perfect. Thank you so much for that answer.
This has been great, and for those of you listening, Jerry's also going to do Schmoes No, so check that
yes,
out.
yes, I'm fired up.
They're the best.
But thank you for joining us. I wish we could have you for more, but of course you're welcome back anytime.
Do I talk too much?
No,
No,
you don't.
I think you're
don't.
good.
Not at all.
I feel like I talk too much.
No, you're
You're
golden.
being interviewed first off, so you should talk.
This is-
Here's the thing. I'll give you one tip, and I don't wish this on any interviewer whatsoever. I used to think people who don't talk or don't talk a lot was bad. I've had someone, I didn't interview them, this poor girl did. This kid didn't talk. He just wouldn't answer.
Right.
I was like, what do you do at that point? Like,
If we were to ask you questions and you would say nothing or one-word answers, then we'd be screwed. So you made our jobs very easy.
and you know what? Ultimately, it's for the fans, though, right? Like by you opening up in that way, the fans really get to know you. So it's, if you just answered, "Hey, my favorite color is blue," it doesn't no one anything.
Look,
good.
the older I get, I just feel like I want to I actually now feel like I could not impart wisdom because I don't think it's very wise, but I think I have stories to tell. I'm definitely gonna be that old man on a rocking chair who like their grandkids are trying to be like, all right, Grandpa, we gotta go. And I'm like, no, I got one more story for you. That's gonna be me for sure.
You're a success story, and that is important to share with people because there are people out there that are feeling defeated by the audition process or whatever, and you have made it. So I think it is important for you to talk as much as you can.
Yeah, it's designed to make you quit, so don't quit.
If you want to see him talk more, go see Entourage the movie. June 3rd in theaters. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for coming in.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Christian Harloff, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only, and not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.